I'm going to be dropping the rear end of my 91 Camaro and replacing the fuel tank, replacing the fuel sending unit, and replacing the fuel pump. It's not working anymore, and I can't drive it without fuel, so there's that. It'll be a few day long project, so today marks the beginning. I've got a lot of fuel in the gas tank, and I don't know what my plan is for that yet. So we'll see. Let's go. Here we go. I have been dreading this for such a long time, but the time has come because I am no longer getting fuel pressure. So I've got a fuel pressure regulator, and it's got a fuel gauge attached to it, and nothing's registering. And every single time I drive my car, randomly it will act like it's out of gas. I'll top off the tank and it will be fine, and then the next day it will act like it's running out of gas. I've done a lot of research, and everything seems to point to the fuel pump. Well, with this Camaro, to take the fuel pump off, you have to, or to replace the fuel pump, you have to drop the rear end. And it's, from what I read, it's a daunting task. So it took my car almost not running to actually, go for it. And while I'm under here, I'm going to replace these springs. The springs that are on the car right now are cut, and the ride is just ridiculously bumpy, and it sits too low, the tires rub. I'm also going to replace the rear struts or shocks. And let's see, I think that's it. Besides the fuel tank, and of course the fuel sending unit and the fuel pump. So before I do anything, I jack up the car and put my jack stands. So once those jack stands are under where they're supposed to support, I'm able to basically just remove the tires and start disassembling the rear end. I've removed enough tires in my lifetime to know that you loosen up the lug nuts before you jack up the car, which is what I did. Sadly, I missed one. So I am not going to go through the trouble of taking the car down and all that stuff, and I just struggle along, and I wedge my knee between the tire and the wheel well. I'm kind of like living on the edge right here, but alas, I get it loose. And it saves me from having to lower the car and do that whole song and dance all over again. Before we have access to anything, we have to remove the heat shielding, and they're secured by, I think it's like 7 or 8 millimeter bolts. There's one big heat shield that sits under the gas tank, and then there's a little baby mini heat shield in the corner that has to come down. The heat shielding is particularly filthy, and I should have worn gloves because I got my hands completely filthy and unusable right in the beginning of this job. With all of this heat shielding removed, and sorry for the blown out footage, the camera angles were real difficult. We're going to remove these two nuts that hold this panhard bar on. So we'll just slip those out. Nothing will be that easy. And then we'll remove this bar that sits above the panhard bar. This was one of those jobs where I did not have to bring out the can of PB Blaster. Every bolt, every nut came out relatively easy. So the hard part was yet to come for this job. Put these little bolts back up here, just because they all start looking the same after a few days. I learned how to do this whole job by watching Tony the Technician. So if you're looking for an actual instructional video, he is amazing. He's got so much attention to detail, and he says everything that you need. I learned so much by watching his videos, and he's got the same 3rd gen Camaro that I have, and he's been working on it for something like 6 years. So anything that I potentially need to do on this car, he probably already has a video out on it, which makes my life, you know, just very easy. I removed the lower strut mounts. Again, just put those bolts back, the nuts back where you found them. And with those released, I can now lower that rear end. But before I do, my neighbor comes along to tell me exactly what I've done wrong, what I could have done better, and rag on me for whatever I purchased from Harbor Freight. So he's just inspecting and making sure that I've got everything set up so I don't die under here. It's actually very nice of him. Thanks, John. With this panhard bar completely loose and this bracket out of the way, I've got a little bit more clearance to lower the rear end. I also loosened up a brake line bracket, which is not shown here, but that helped as well with clearance. As I go to lower the car, unfortunately the turn downs, my pipes, are in the way of the drive shaft, so it's hindering it from getting it low enough to clear the gas tank. So we go in and we loosen up the exhaust brackets, and that gives just a slight bit more clearance for us to get a little bit lower on this. The creaking and the cricking and all the weird sounds that were happening while this was coming down made me so nervous. I thought that, you know, one of these springs was gonna pop out or the jack was gonna fail. You know, all these Final Destination things are just kind of going through my mind. Thankfully, none of that happened. Obviously, we used, you know, the proper safety measures, and we're able to get the rear end low enough where these springs just kind of pop right out. And they don't like wildly pop out, they just gently pop right out. And you can see how much lower they are than the new springs I put in. Next up is just to remove all of the fuel line connections. There's 3 fuel line connections, and then there's this fuel vent connection. It goes to this, basically it's a breather, and as I removed that, it cracked, and it's just this cheap plastic. And I ended up having to order a new one on Amazon, and the random little thing was like $20, which was just annoying. As you're doing this, keep in mind gasoline will come down, so have a little bucket handy to catch all that gas. Other than these gas lines, the only thing that you need to disconnect before you start undoing the fuel tank straps is this little connector device, which you can kind of see in the top left corner there. It's been disconnected. And now it's time to drop the gas tank. So we removed the straps, and oh boy, oh boy. It's been showing me that it's got like a quarter tank. Look at this.
Okay.
Oh my god. In all honesty, I had no idea just how much gasoline was in that tank. It turned out to be probably 16, 17 gallons worth. So I did feel bad because that thing must have come down quite heavy. I hate seeing my Camaro jacked up in my garage. This is day 2 of the project, and I'm hoping to install, no, scratch that. I am going to install the gas tank back into the car. I need some parts from O'Reilly first, so let's go. I had watched several YouTube videos and read on many forums that installing a new fuel pump into a tank is a difficult process. I thought by difficult it meant like, 2, 3 tries kind of difficult. I didn't realize that I had entered into the abyss of not only a difficult job, but absolutely impossible, and made no sense as to why it was so difficult. This video doesn't show it, but I struggled with this for about an hour and a half. I analyzed and compared the old fuel pump to the new fuel pump. I analyzed how the old one was placed in. I stopped what I was doing and watched more YouTube videos and analyzed how they maneuvered it inside. It was just insanely difficult, to say the very least. It was definitely one of those like soul-searching jobs where you just wonder where in your life you chose the path that led you down this frustrating task here. And then the sun beating down on me definitely didn't make it fun. I'm one of those people that just does not want to ask for help ever. Like, I'd rather hurt myself in the process than ask for help. But unfortunately, the gas tank was beyond my strength ability. So I did call my brother-in-law, and he helped me. The problem with my brother-in-law, and I say this because I'm 90% sure he'll never watch this, is he is very strong. He's physically strong. So he goes at things with just brute strength. And with getting this tank in place, you kind of needed to use logic. And logic eludes him sometimes. So he was ram-jamming this tank in, for like 2.5 hours. We couldn't get it in because not at any point in time did he think, well, maybe it just needs to be like repositioned or tweaked. So, we ended up going to the hardware store and buying bolts that were like this long just to make the straps like fit. The next day, after like coming to my senses and thinking about what we did, I realized after all the forums that I read and all the YouTube videos I watched, no one had an issue like this. Like, it was definitely something that we were doing wrong. And I was 100% sure that the gas tanks were identical in size. So the next day, with the help of my neighbor, we removed it and it was like butter. We just popped the straps off, did a little tweak, and then it just fit into place beautifully. I mean, we still had some issues with it, as you'll see, but it fits, and it fit what it should be, using the bolts that it should use. Something that I didn't show, because I just couldn't get the camera angle, was how hard it was to get the nozzle into like that gas cap area. So that was pretty difficult, especially because the gas tube on the tank was bent at a slightly different angle from the original. Anyways, with the help of a mallet and screwdrivers and a crowbar, we got it done. And with everything installed, I can go ahead and tackle attaching those fuel lines. Update to this job from the depths of hell. I made my second trip to O'Reilly, got the correct size hoses, My neighbor helped me put the tank back into position where it belonged in the first place. We were able to get the bolts in. I got all the gas out of the old gas tank. No, I didn't. My neighbor siphoned it out. But I did not. For the new gas tank, we're getting close to seeing if this even fixed the issue in the first place. I almost ran out of gas on my way to O'Reilly, but I refuse to put gas in the car because I've got so much gas at home, and I've spilled more gas on myself than probably water in the last few days. So I got replacement hoses from O'Reilly. To do so, I brought the old hoses and I said, hello, please match these hoses. They need to be fuel hoses, and these are the sizes, and these are the lengths. The guy gave me the wrong sizes, and I did not notice at the store just because I was so focused on getting back home and doing the project. So I went back to O'Reilly, and it was an interesting situation to get the correct hoses, but we got them. Time to get this stupid thing into that stupid thing. And by stupid things, I just mean this pan hard bar bolted back in. But at this point in the job, everything's a stupid thing to me, including myself, for even tackling this. Sometimes I'll be turning the wrench and I'll be focused on something and I start thinking about like something stupid that I did like 10 years ago and I'm paralyzed. Let's get these last bolts in. The anticipation of getting everything back together and firing this up is it's a lot, because you know, I'm thinking, what if this didn't change anything and I'm still not getting any fuel pressure? I mean, you know, it is what it is. It's part of the process and part of the fun, but this was a long, arduous job. With all of the bolts checked and everything mounted back into place, I reattached the heat shield. I did clean it. It didn't look very clean, but I did kind of clean it up a little bit. Putting gas is key to making this work, and not running the pump dry, which would be such an easy mistake to do. Let's face it, especially for me. As soon as I got in the car and I turned the key, it was a good sign because I could hear that fuel pump whizzing on. So I felt amazing. Lo and behold, after everything was said and done, I'm getting fuel pressure. The car's running the best I've ever had it running. So I'm so happy that I took the time to do that. The next big job that involves the rear end will be the drum to disc brake conversion. And I wanted to do it while I had everything out, but it became such a huge job that I couldn't even imagine tackling more. But yeah, I got in the car, it fires right up. You can hear the pump like getting started, and it's getting the gas that it needs. So, you know, all in all, not bad. I really can't complain. And the best part was that since the new springs brought the car up higher, I was able to reroute my exhaust out the rear. So now I've got, it's straight pipe, it's got an X pipe, and it's got dual tips running out the back. And now that it has that, I'm able to do a flamethrower kit on it. So I'm going to be tackling that soon. But anyways, thank you for watching this fun journey. Bye.